Good evening. The Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, says a new chapter in the battle against coronavirus has begun, with the Omicron variant now in retreat. Today in England, restrictions in place since December have been eased, meaning face coverings are no longer mandatory indoors in most public spaces. But some businesses are still encouraging people to wear masks, including major supermarkets and rail operators. And face coverings will remain mandatory in public spaces in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. England is also diverging from the other home nations on the issue of mandatory vaccines for NHS staff, with just a week to go before the deadline for healthcare workers to get their first jab to continue in a frontline role. Latest figures show just over 5%, or 77,500 workers, are still unvaccinated. Sajid Javid maintains the policy is right. Well, with the very latest, here's our health editor, Hugh Pym.
I'm Jocelyn. I've been a nurse for 30 years and I'm not going to have the second dose of the vaccine.
I'm Pauline. I'm a mental health nurse for nearly 20 years and I do not agree with the compulsory COVID-19 vaccination.
They risk losing their jobs because they don't want the jabs. There's been a heated debate, not least on social media. The hashtag #GetVaccinated trended on Twitter as doctors called for their colleagues to have the jab.
I would want the choice.
Jocelyn is a community nurse. She says it should be a question of personal freedom rather than an order by the government.
Isn't the best way to protect patients to get fully vaccinated?
Would you give up your freedom, your God-given freedom of choice for a job?
I think we should have the right to choose at this stage for our body about is it right for us individually.
There is nothing more insulting to a nurse than telling her that she's, causing harm to her patients.
1 minute the nurses, they were being clapped for and they had to work through it and they didn't care about all this and then all of a sudden, oh, by the way, if you don't get a jab, you're going to lose your job.
With England being the only nation with a mandate, Pauline is considering looking for a job in Wales. But Dr. Chintal Patel, who's a GP, is not against the mandatory NHS staff vaccine. For her, your freedom to choose is lost when that decision could impact on patient safety.
I think if you are unvaccinated, then there is a risk that you are potentially exposing your patients to harm. Up to a third of people do not mount an immune response to the infection, and actually vaccination provides a much better immune response and also reduces the risk of transmission. So I do think those that are patient-facing should be vaccinated.
Most health leaders are supporting compulsory vaccines for frontline staff.
At the time of the consultation, a majority of NHS leaders believed that mandating the vaccine had benefits to their services, benefits to their staff and their teams, and had benefits in terms of protecting the public against transmissibility of the virus, but also in terms of building the public's confidence in the services that the NHS were providing.
On Saturday, those against the mandate made their voices heard. Maternity staff turned out in large numbers. For them, bodily autonomy is fundamental to their profession.
So I was going to ask about the protest.
Catherine, who's a midwife, was at the march.
Medical experts are strongly recommending the vaccine. Isn't that enough assurance for you?
I believe history has shown us that all of us should make our own decisions when it comes to our health.
She says if things don't change, she'll leave her Hampshire trust, but worries about the impact on care.
I do understand everybody wants patient safety, but during a staffing crisis, that safety will be severely compromised with less staff, and this decision will assuredly provide less staff.
There's now a week to go for unvaccinated NHS staff to have first doses. Ministers point to the fact that 95% have already had that first jab. Hugh Pym, BBC News.